Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our last episode of Orange Juice News and Notes from around the world of Insoles for the year of 2025. I realized as I was saying that might have been a cliffhanger. This is not our last episode ever, but we are wrapping up the year. So, with that, we have myself, Owen, and sister Mallory here, and we're going to talk a little bit about this year's goals, this year being 2025, and how they went for us, lessons we learned, and then also give you, our listeners, some ideas around setting goals for the new year and how to best approach that. And just through this kind of honest and vulnerable conversation, we hope that it helps you reflect again on your 2025 and how you did and how to make 2026 a great year. So, with that said, Mallory, I will kick it over to you. I know you had several goals that you'd set last year, more than me, and it looks like you did a pretty good job with them.
Yeah, it's so crazy because one of our first episodes was going over our goals, and I can't believe we've already been doing this a year. But yeah, I actually had 10 goals last year, which sounds like a lot, but some of them were ones that didn't seem so crazy to me. So, good mix of crazy goals and achievable. Yeah, I just wanted to go over four quick ones that I did achieve this year. And just go over them quickly because not many lessons learned on on these, but I have a few others that I did, learn a good bit from. So the four I completed and am proud of, but also aren't that helpful for this conversation is I did go to Ireland at this time last year. I had nothing planned. I just wanted to go and I made it happen. I released another podcast called the Cannonball Podcast. If you're a fan of pop culture or cars, check it out. Um, I committed to my flexibility training. So I did that about 3 to 4 times a week this whole year, and can do some crazy stuff now. So that's really fun. And then the last one, which I feel like we talked about a lot on this podcast for some reason, was my step average, which I wanted to be 9,000 steps for the year. And according to my phone, I'm at 9,970. So you may be able to guess what my average might be next year for my goal. But I'm really proud of it. Um, and those were definitely goals I did have to, think about and work at. They didn't just happen, but that was just consistency and planning kind of stuff.
Well,
So yeah.
that's awesome, Mallory. Those are some very impressive goals. Obviously, you crushed your 9,000 step goal. 10,000 is next, I would assume, for this upcoming year. If you really, really wanted to challenge yourself, maybe you could do 11,000 since you're already basically doing 10,000. But that's up to you and your own personal, agenda, if that's the right word for it. But I'm so glad you shared those, and it is actually, I would say, relevant to this conversation because it's so important to celebrate accomplishments. And when you do set a goal and hit it, that is a big deal for yourself. And it's okay to high five yourself and say, "Hey, I did a good job." And like you said, I'm proud of myself. Because at the end of the day, it's a journey to be fulfilled and live your best life and that sort of thing. That's why you set goals and all of that. For me, I wish I had a little more of a thought out list of goals. Last year, I thought I was super clever by coming up with like, hey, I want to do these things every single day, and if I do these things in the day, any given day, I can label it like a really good and solid day and productive. And some of those things were like walking the dog and doing like an additional chore around the house outside of just like cleaning and that sort of thing. I had some mindfulness mixed in, like prayer and that sort of thing. So, all really great intentions, but I had a tough time hitting all of my goals every single day. I didn't hit any of them every single day. There were days that I missed for everything inevitably. So I had some really good intentions, but I don't know if I set myself up as good as I could have. So I'll use like walking the dogs, for example. Maybe instead of saying I'm going to walk the dogs every single day, because recently it was, 0 degrees with a foot of snow on the ground. So I didn't walk the dogs that day. I could say in any given week, I want to exercise the dogs, you know, 90 minutes, and it would probably be more than that, but just for the conversation, 90 minutes. That probably would have been a more useful and productive goal, and I 100% would have checked that box off more weeks than not. It probably most every week realistically. So they're just certain goals that you set maybe with the right intentions in mind, but they're just tough to live up to.
Yeah, I had a few months this year where I would be like, for the month of December, I actually did do this. I'm like, I'm gonna knit every day, or I'm gonna, one was like use the Theragun. And it was easy for me to do that for a while. And the only reason I bring this up is I am a single, like, woman, well, single as in I'm not married and have a family, but like, in a city who is only really responsible for herself right now. So I have more time and energy to do those things. But I will say the second I got home for the holidays and there's all these other people around and responsibility and tasks and obligations, all of that just went away. Like I could not hit my goals every day. So like it's also just give yourself credit. Maybe at one point you were a college student who had time for this stuff and you were doing that stuff. And now you have a family and a full-time job and like life changes. So the only reason I bring that up too is just like be, caring for yourself too. Of maybe these were things you were able to do in the past, but life and circumstances change. And um, I think that's something we'll touch on a little bit more later, but like realizing that you should be pretty adaptable with your goals and when maybe they need to change to fit your lifestyle. So I think that's important to touch on.
So well said. And with that, I kind of want to roll out this concept that I believe we actually talked about in one of our first few episodes of setting SMART goals. So SMART goals, SMART is an acronym for, excuse me, it stands for altogether specific, S specific goals, measurable goals, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So the idea is if you set a goal and they follow each of these five, I guess, buckets, or they fit into these buckets, it would be a solid goal. What does that mean? I mean, that's kind of like a, I guess, like subjective term. What it means is it's a goal that you can set, you can go out and work for and reach and measure that you did in fact hit it and then celebrate. Or if you didn't hit it, you can measure what went wrong, see how you can adjust and move forward. So that's the idea of these SMART goals. Mallory, have you ever been exposed to SMART goals in the past, whether it was through like a class or work or something?
Yeah, I feel like they made us do this in high school at some point, but, yeah, and I had kind of 3 of my goals that I didn't necessarily make SMART that, I I'll say I partially completed. So, like, one was I just wrote, like, moisturize, which goes under the specific. That's so vague. What does that mean? But if I was like you were kinda saying earlier, if I made it more specific where I'm like, "I'm gonna, like, lotion up 3 times a week," or whatever, or, like, things like that, I just was never specific, so I put it as a partial complete because I would make that rule up for myself for, like, 2 weeks, but I never wrote it down or, like, made it a real goal, so then I'd fall off of it, and then so I was back and forth a lot. Um but then a good example of that was I did finish 36 books this year, and why I chose 36 is because that is 3 books a month, and that was really easy to track, because I know if I hit my 3 books a month, then I'm hitting my goal, and that was just way more specific, easy, time-bound, all of those things, which yeah, that made that goal so much easier. I did make my goal 40 books next year because I just barely hit this goal. So I'm actually curious to see how that goes with the random extra 4 books, how I'll decide to do that. But I think having a more specific thing like that helps. Um, yeah, and then the last the last goal I had in this bucket of partially completed though was I did write give running a try, which is also vague. Um, and maybe it's vague for a reason because I didn't really
Right?
I didn't really wanna run, but I did give it a try for a few weeks, and, I went a little too hard and maybe got some shin splints and didn't wanna run anymore, and that is another lesson learned, because that also goes under, like, the attainable, I went too fast too quickly. So maybe I needed to make that goal a little smaller with how much I was running and maybe just do a little bit. Instead of running like 4 times a week, I should have just done once or twice a week to start. So keeping that attainable in mind too is also really good for the
So true.
next
You can
year.
always build on habits. So, to give an example of maybe how to set a SMART goal, uh, I guess generally, like heading into the new year, a lot of folks will say, I want to get into better shape. So let's take that and break it down and actually set a goal around it. So to be more specific, what does better shape mean? That could be something different for everyone. But let's say in this case, you want to lose weight. So you say, okay, I want to be in better shape. I want to lose weight. That would be the specific part of the goal, and you want to be able to measure the amount of weight you're losing, or hey, did I hit this goal or did I not hit this goal? So setting a target goal, so in this case you could say I want to lose 5 pounds. That's then going to be measurable, where at the end of the day you could say, um, yes, I did lose 5 pounds, or no, I did not lose 5 pounds. And that's just going to be that much of a stronger goal opposed to, I want to lose weight, because that's just a very vague goal. And then also you want to make sure it's attainable. So think about where you're at, if you have the means to hit these goals, or to what extent you're going to be able to really focus on them. So maybe a good example of a bad goal would be saying, I want to lose 50 pounds. It's like, okay, I don't know where you're at with your weight loss journey. I'm sure you do want to lose 50 pounds, but just starting today and saying, I want to lose 50 pounds, that's a very daunting task. And it seems like you're going to be really chasing that goal and chasing and chasing and chasing. So setting something that's more attainable, that you can say, hey, yes, I did hit this. Or no, I didn't. And here's why. And here's what I can do to hit it next time, is super important. And then also, the relevance of the goal is very important. So if you had a goal, like I'll talk for myself, I said, hey, I want to shoot a 70 in golf this year. I want to significantly improve in golf. We'll just say that. I know that's not a smart goal. All right, I'll make it a smart goal. And now I'm kind of getting off track a little bit, but I want to be able to break a score of 85 in golf. And for golfers, you'll know what that means. If not, it's just a certain score that you want to try to beat. For me right now in my life, with everything going on, I found that golf is way too much of a time contribution, where it is very hard for me to justify going to a golf course for 5 hours a day. I'm not going to get the fulfillment with that, because that's going to leave basically the rest of my life, my family life, my home, all of that sort of stuff in flux. I'm not going to be, it's going to take away from other goals. So it's less relevant to me right now with where I'm at. So choosing, again, like this weight loss goal, I want to lose 5 pounds. Hey, that's relevant because we all want to live a healthy life. We want to feel our best, and we want to stick around for as long as we can. So being healthy, losing weight is a part of that. Um, the final piece of this, to setting a good SMART goal, is it has to be time bound. So if you say, Mallory, you say, I want to start running, uh, what does that mean? Is that, and you did say, to be fair, in 2025 is the goal. But if you just said, like, one day you're like, hey, I want to start running. When do you want to do that? When do you want to get ramped up? When are you going to measure if this goal was a success or not? So, truly setting, uh, kind of like a deadline, or a time period on it really helps, because the nature of all of us, of humans, is just to kind of push things off that don't necessarily have that specific deadline or date, or time to reevaluate. So doing all of that together is going to help you really set a stronger goal.
Yeah, and two things I was thinking about as you went through this is as you go through this process, I think it can bring up two things. The first being that you might need to break up your goal into smaller goals, like you were saying. Like if I go into being like, I want to lose 100 pounds this year, um, that is a very big goal and can be very daunting, and especially if you don't have a plan. So, like Owen was saying, maybe it's, I want to lose 5 pounds this month. Let's start a lot smaller. But then that brings me to my second point. Um, Within that, you still need an action plan of how you're going to get there. So it is good that you make that goal, but going through this process can also maybe show that you need to make more smaller SMART goals under your big goal. So if it's again lose 5 pounds in a month, maybe now I need to make a plan to meal prep twice a week and also go to the gym 3 times a week as two smaller SMART goals under this bigger one to make sure I actually can attain my goal. It's great to have a idea of what you want to do and, make these goals and go through this process. But if you don't have an actual plan to get you there, you also might not, hit it. So something to keep in mind, and it's really nice to actually like get out a piece of paper and a pen and write this down and work through the process and figure out what you need to do to actually hit your goal. So just a little tip, I guess, as you're going through that I was thinking about.
Absolutely, and it really just helps, like you're saying, with the goal tracking where, maybe you can tell, like, "Hey, I'm not on track to hit this goal. What can I do differently?" And then you go to, like, your sub goals of, like, your, going to the gym and, like, your meal prepping, it's like, "Hey, am I going to the gym each week, 3 times?" Maybe the answer is no, and then you can diagnose that's like, "Hey, why am I not going? Is it because I'm not planning specific times? Is it because like it was just a busy few weeks and like it just wasn't practical, but like coming up it's going to work way better? Like what's actually going on and how can you get on track and stay on track?" Or, like you were saying, you set these goals and maybe you are hitting these sub goals, but it's not amounting to your bigger goal. So that could mean, really two things. One, you could essentially up those inputs to hit that goal and ask yourself, like, hey, is this relevant to me right now? Do I have the capacity to really work that much harder on this goal right now to meet it? Uh, or the flip side, which is something that people view as almost a failure when it's totally not a failure at all. Maybe you need to reset your goals. And that goal just at the time you had the best intentions of setting it and you thought that this was going to be an achievable goal and relevant and it was going to be the best for you. But it turns out that actually something different, maybe it's a different goal, is going to be better for you. Or maybe like lowering your standard and saying, hey, actually, I think if I only lost instead of 100 pounds in a year, which obviously like that's a huge amount. And like, we're not saying like, hey, that's a good goal. Like go out this year and lose 100 pounds. You could start with that 5 pounds and still feel really proud of yourself. But it's just a way to kind of say, hey, maybe I can lower that and still again give myself a high five and hit my goals and feel better about it and feel accomplished. So really it's this balancing act of like, hey, am I hitting my inputs for this bigger goal and are those inputs and is this goal still serving me?
Yeah, and I did have 3 goals I didn't complete this year, that kinda go along with that and, like, some lessons I learned with goal setting. 2 of them I'll kinda put together, which is handstands and middle splits. Um, for me, I just kinda learned with that. Actually, I will admit with the handstand, I didn't start till the middle of the year, so you gotta start on that early. That was my bad. And make it a priority, which kinda goes into my point too. But, some things I learned, especially with, like, my middle splits, just take longer than a year. They do. Some goals are, that's also something to think about while you're making your goals for next year. That's in the attainable, what's attainable in a year. I was hoping it would be, and it wasn't, and that's okay. And that's good to learn. And I just moved it to my list for this year. It's something I want to keep working on. Does not mean I need to give up on it. Some things, you just need to move to the next year and keep working 'cause they just take longer. Um, on the flip side of that, I also wrote that I want to write 2 short films. I didn't do that. That's also been on my list for a few years and I haven't done it. And that's also just learning maybe that's not a priority in my life anymore. And like in reflecting back, I actually did do a lot of writing this year, just in different ways. So although my goal, was to write 2 short films, maybe my priority isn't writing films anymore, and I'm finding that enjoyment in other ways, and that's okay. And maybe I just need to let go of that idea and stop putting that pressure on myself. So, not hitting some of your goals actually can be very revealing to what's a priority in your life. and or what might just take longer. And those are both totally okay and good to learn about yourself.
100%. And with the short films goal, I can't help but say I feel like maybe and you would know better than me, but maybe if you broke it down further, like, hey, this year I want to have one solid concrete idea that in 2020 7, just like, the next year I feel comfortable acting on, and just breaking it down that much smaller, maybe it because that I mean, that sounds like a big deal, but maybe even that would be, a better way to approach it, or maybe like you're saying, you're like, "I just, I'm not as passionate about this," and that would be very fair. But the point is there's so many different ways to look at goals and break them down and ask how they're serving you and what you can do differently to approach them.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest takeaway is from all of this is smaller steps are gonna get you a lot farther, and consistency, and I know that stuff I'm sure you hear all the time, but it's like, it's crazy how much it works. Like, just keep thinking smaller. I know that sounds crazy, but the smaller you think with this, the bigger results you will get long term. You won't be as overwhelmed. You get those smaller like, when you hit that 5-pound weight loss goal as the example, you're already proud. You're not like, "Gosh, I have 95 more to hit my goal." You hit that goal. That's awesome. Now set a new goal. That is what keeps you motivated. You're building off that momentum, and that is huge. So just keep that in mind. Like that momentum will carry you hitting those smaller goals throughout the year instead of I need one big goal at the end. Which like honestly, that book thing goes back into it. When I hit the 3 at the end of the month, I was proud because I know I'm on track. So having those like measurable mental things will help you so much.
Well said, Mallory. Listeners, hopefully that helps you visualize what you want to do for 2026, or maybe even just how to approach things as you are setting goals and tracking them throughout the year. But thank you so much to all of our listeners for a wonderful year. We'll be back with many more weekly episodes with health and wellness topics in 2026. And we look forward to continuing to share many information or a lot of information, tips, and tricks with you in 2026 and beyond. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you again soon.